Welcome to Lashback, everyone. I'm Natalyan.
And I'm Phoebe. And this week, we're going to be discussing, controversial or not, the differences between men and women. So, this is a topic that triggers debate in every social interaction I have, as well as at work, as well as in other contexts of my life. So, Nat, what say you?
So it's really funny because growing up, say in my 20s, I used to always kind of defy that we're very different, other than, biologically. I used to think, no, like I've always had male friends. I've always had more male friends than female friends because I'm quite masculine. But as I've got older, I've really seen them, having been in long-term relationships and a marriage, that there is fundamental differences that men and women just can't help as well. I'm not giving any excuses here, but one thing I've realised from doing research as well, and my experience, is that men think more macro and women think more micro. So just going to the pub and having a conversation, the boys might talk about football, sex, something, not that intense and deep and emotional.
Your mom.
Yeah. Whereas we talk about really, women tend to be more emotionally direct with things.
Get into the detail of things, you mean? Now, how much of that do you think is biology and how much of that is social conditioning?
Well, there is, I did do some research in terms of men tend to excel better at singular tasks, whereas women are better at juggling a number of tasks. So I think that there's
that's true.
It's true. And I think there's obviously something to be said about women give birth, right? So they biologically have to juggle more things. So I think there's always a nature-nurture component to everything, and how you raise your son, for example. Like if I had a son, I'd raise him a certain way, right?
Yeah. Are you giving his future wife a job, or are you giving his future wife a proper, fully fledged man? It's interesting that, because there are differences in neuro in the brain as well.
Yes.
It's been proven recently women need more sleep than men do. Men's hormones are their cycle's 24 hours and we're on a 28 days. So there are some sort of key differences in the brain and the body around what we do. And then I think we get into funny sociological kind of conversations about this sort of thing, especially when religion gets involved, or the notion of a woman's place is, or a man's job is, and that creates a whole load of conditioning. And you're a boy, so you'll play with a truck, and you're a girl, so you'll have a doll.
Yeah, because I always
not necessarily. Yeah, and that might not necessarily be that individual's choices. But I'm the same as you. I mean, I'm pretty masculine. I've not got much of a brain for detailed conversation, but I am a really good multitasker.
Yeah, same. But I mean, there's something here. Yeah, there's something here that I looked up as well from the Power of Positivity. It's a book, and the dealing with emotions, for example, women apparently have a larger limbic system in their brains, which allows them to be more in touch and expressive about their emotions, whereas men tend to be a little oblivious with emotions that are not explicitly verbalized. So, and I found that in relationships that...
And yet, that more men kill themselves than women do. And how much of that is boys don't cry and girls can cry? How much of that is social condition, societal? Yeah, absolutely. Of, men aren't allowed to have emotions, because as human beings, we do still have somatic systems and nervous systems and have things that upset us. And, men aren't necessarily taught as boys to process emotion. Now, if they're not, if that's your book saying, that they don't have such a keen sense for processing it, then that's double problem for them, isn't it? Because society says don't have them, and then they're like, well, we find it hard anyway, rather than, I mean, I've got some very, very good male mates, and a lot of the time, the conversation might be about more about them than me, but also because I can hold a space for them to process stuff that I would have done whilst brushing my teeth.
I think you have to be more literal with men as well. I found that, and I was even told that in my marriage that, you know, I'm happy for you to tell me to do the washing, but I'm not going to think of doing the washing, which for me
That's
is,
the
again,
title. His mum
that's
did that
always
to him.
annoyed. Why should I have to be your PA, if you like, and think of everything? I know you're happy for me to tell you to do it, but why should I have to think to tell you to do it? And I've been told that a lot from people in their relationships.
And that's about the emotional labor of the home. This kind of notion of you're not helping your wife, you're doing the dishes because it's your house too. And that's the cycle.
Oh, that is such a bugbear pet peeve of mine that,
But that's the cycle. What do I need a wife for?
I've done the washing. By the way, I've done the washing. I've done your washing for you. I'm like, no, you're not helping me out. This is yours too. This is what needs to be done. You're not helping me out. And I used to always feel like I had to give the partner a bloody medal, right, for achieving something, whereas I just always did it anyway and never got any praise for it. You know, so it's that kind of granular detail. And even with my male friends, I think that I have to be quite explicit. I've got a lot of really, really wonderful long-term male friends. And if something was bothering me, I have to be explicit about it.
You have to say it direct, yeah.
Yeah.
They're not going to intuit.
Yeah, and that supports what we've been saying. So I think there is biological, because the brains are wired differently. There's different, and hormonal, you know, especially women, periods, menopause, all these different things. We have more hormonal intensity, I would say, because we have more stages. They have puberty and that's it, right? I'm not saying it's completely it, but in the grand scheme of things. So we have a lot more intensity in our evolution, if you like, throughout our life.
Different stages, yeah. I mean, like what we're talking about here is testosterone and estrogen. And of course, every human being has testosterone and estrogen. But if you've got more testosterone, you're going to be a bloke. And if you've got more estrogen, you're going to be a woman. And that happens in your human development stage in the womb.
Chromosomes.
And totally. And testosterone's high in the morning and depleted by the end of the night. So I was, a friend sent me something around, you know, after a day's work, the testosterone's a bit depleted, and, you know, don't ask him to do anything when he just gets home from work, because he needs to recoup his testosterone, and then he's got some energy and some fire to do some other stuff. Now, interestingly, when we're in our third phase of women, in the third phase of the menstrual cycle, our estrogen plummets. So our testosterone floods the system. So all of that stuff around PMT or PMS, as you call it in the States, is actually women behaving a bit masculinely, saying what they think, being a bit direct, having a bit of being irritable about stuff. It's very interesting, all of that, because there is also, you know, to go back to a point you made before around how a mum or a dad raises a son, you know, and I think it doesn't happen so much these days, but certainly men that I know that are older than me or around about my age, you know, mum did everything for them. So it actually taught them blindness. They don't see the things on the floor that need picking up because they were always picked up.
They just magically disappeared, right?
Yeah, but they literally haven't been taught.
Yeah.
They literally, and then it keeps happening. And then I was also reading this study that said women get a cortisol spike, so the stress hormone spike. Yeah. In a cluttered house, like more than a man does, because a cluttered house represents work to a woman, where it represents a to-do list. There's stuff everywhere. This is a to-do list, and I'm stressed because I've got too much to do, versus a bloke just not seeing it, not having any.
I mean, I can't sleep with, you know, how I'm worse than I wouldn't say OCD. I think I say that, but I'm kind of joking. That's very extreme. That's a real condition, which I don't think I have, but I definitely have more anxiety and intensity when it comes to clutter and mess and tidiness and all of those different things, which my brain just can't function. I mean, that's why I'm very.
That could be neurodiversity, though, equally.
Yeah. But here's another thing from a biological perspective. Do the math, this says. Men tend to have larger, inferior parietal, sorry if that's wrong, lobules than women. This area of the brain is thought to control mathematical ability and processes, and men tend to do better with math because of this. This isn't to say there aren't great women that are, mathematical, but again, we're talking the masses here. There's always
in general terms, yeah.
Yeah, but men tend to have a small biological advantage when it comes to math and logic-based skills, which kind of, if you look at the history of people, is probably quite accurate.
Well, if you look at who's been in power, who's been in disproportionate power of the world over the last couple of thousands of years, it's no wonder we've got capitalism. That Will Ferrell, I can't remember, he was giving an award ceremony speech, and it's like done the rounds on the social medias, and he's saying, can the women please take over? I find this really interesting, because he's saying, can women please take over? Look around, we've kind of messed it up. The men have messed it up. And it's like, oh yeah, women should lead. Yeah, let the women lead. And I'm sitting there going, what, you want me to do that as well, do you?
Yeah. But
can we not share it? Because actually...
That's the point.
Dynamics. If we go to team dynamics, if we go to team dynamics, like if we just stop talking about men and women completely, and we like psychometric testing, which you might do in an organisation, whatever model of psychometric testing you're using on a team dynamic level, you always want lots of different people in a team.
That's why you should always have a split of men and women, because of these biological societal.
Also like learning preferences, like some people are starters and some people are researchers and some people finish. But it's this kind of idea that, one dominant way is not going to work at all. And a happy house, like if we're talking heteronormative marriage situations, a happy house is one where mum and dad pull the weight equally. They're both present for the kids. They're both present in the housework. Really, really productive, happy couples cover all of the bases.
Yeah, I mean, I think that and again, by equal, I'll always say this, equal doesn't mean it has to always be like that, but it has to be balanced, right? You pull upon your pros and cons, and that's how you raise a good generation, is from them seeing that if I actually do want to play with cars, because I never was one, I had the odd doll.
I love my cars. I had loads of
me
cars.
Too. I had dolls, but I didn't have dolls in the sense of just doing nothing. Any doll I had did something, like it sung, or it went to the bathroom, or it had a reason, rather than just prancing around the top, pretending. I didn't do that. I'd rather have the racetrack because it was something to do.
I loved my racetrack.
Was it Scalextrics? I don't know if
no. I had the. It was probably Fisher Price, I think. I don't remember. It was like a car park. It was like you had like a little rug thing which had the track on it, and then it had a car park which had a lift, and then a thing where they would go down.
I remember that.
I had loads of little cars, and some of them you pulled them.
That's probably our creative side as well, because I couldn't fathom having these plastic things that just sat there and me.
Nothing.
I don't know whether that's less creative.
I quite like dressing dolls up, but again, I think that's creative. And I had a Barbie and I cut her hair.
Yeah, no, I used to
like the hair.
Yeah.
So it was always about. But then there's quite a lot of psychological research around a child modelling. So it's a really good therapeutic tool, isn't it? You've got dolls and you can act out situations. There's actually a way for a child to start learning how to emotionally process things. And you're talking, and this is not my area of expertise, but, if you had a child in trauma and somebody was working with that child, they'd work with dolls, male or female, because that would be their way of expressing, or, drawing, sketching, and, who's that stick?
Taking them into a different space. Yeah.
Because there is something about, there is definitely something about understanding your form. And there's quite a lot around, this is Freudian theory, little boy looks up to dad and little girl looks up to mum. But of course, if there's a power dynamic that's unhelpful or a bit abusive between those two, then that kind of messes you up. You need therapy, telling me about your mother when you're older. It's a fascinating topic, really. I think it gets really kind of muddied by the rules, the perceived rules that are there. And maybe we should talk about this in another episode, because if we go Indian philosophy, we talk about masculine and feminine energies, not male and female bodies. And we're in a completely different realm of talking.
Yeah.
But
So hold that thought.
Let's do that next time.
Yeah. I think we're going to continue this episode into another part, and we can delve a little bit deeper, and we can talk more about our own personal experiences. So, everything's relatable. So
all right.
See you in a few weeks or so with this part 2 of this episode, guys.
Yeah, great. And give us your comments. What do you think? And we'll see you next time.
See you later. Bye-bye.